Babel is a B2B PR and content marketing agency. We're based here in central London. Myself and my colleague Holly are on the call today in our office very near the BT Tower, if you know it. Babel, we work with a number of different clients across the globe, not just based here in the UK, including Do It, and I'm very pleased that Chrissy from Do It is on the call with us today. So today's discussion is all around the topic of the value of B2B brand awareness. But before I get into that, I'd like to introduce in more detail our guests. As I mentioned, Chrissy is from Do It. Chrissy, over to you. Do you just want to introduce the company, your role and your career background?
Yes, absolutely. Thanks, Simon. So as you just mentioned, I manage our public relations and analyst relations programs here at Do It. We are a technology company that provides both software products and cloud expertise to companies so that they can better buy, manage, and optimize their public cloud. We mainly target small to mid-sized businesses who were born in the cloud and are really looking to scale, but might be facing cost optimization issues or need help facilitating issues with their infrastructure per se. So when they partner with Do It, we are able to help them really optimize that and facilitate these cloud challenges that they might not be able to resource internally. So in short, we're really simplifying their cloud journey so that they can focus on what's important in their business. And my role at Do It is to really drive brand awareness, customer acquisition, and revenue for the company through high impact third party content from our press and analyst community. So we work with the team over at Babel to kind of secure these media opportunities, to build relationships with these influencers and promote the Do It brand and the value prop that we provide. So it's been really wonderful and exciting to kind of build this program up with Babel and team.
Great, thank you, Chrissy. Our second guest is John Lombardo. Until very recently, John was the global head of research at the LinkedIn-funded think tank, the B2B Institute. John, welcome. Thanks very much for joining us today. Can you talk about your role at LinkedIn, your career today, and perhaps give us a tease over what you've got planned for the coming year?
Yeah, great to be here. Looking forward to the conversation. Yeah, I just left LinkedIn. I spent 10 years there and spent a lot of time as the head of research at the B2B Institute. We did lots of research into evidence-based marketing. So lots of the work that Aaron Berg-Bass, Byron Sharp, Jenny Romaniuk do. Most of that work had been done in B2C. There's always very famous laws of growth in B2C. They had not been replicated in B2B. So we spent a bunch of time working with all those wonderful folks to replicate them in B2B and found that many of the laws do hold. So that's a lot of the work that I did all around marketing effectiveness. Increasingly thinking about marketing efficiency, because I believe you do need both, of course, not just effectiveness, but efficiency too. Before that, I worked at GE and I was in the global marketing team and did a lot of work with the businesses. So have a long history in the world of B2B marketing. Love it. It's the most maybe undervalued place in marketing today.
I completely agree, John. And then finally, Holly Abbott, as I mentioned, my colleague here at Babel, a campaign director. Holly, just introduce yourself and what's your role in helping our clients to raise brand awareness?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Simon. So yeah, my name's Feb2024. I'm a campaign director here at Babel. This involves me really directing the content and strategy of our campaigns to ensure the greatest value for my clients, obviously one of which includes Do It, but then I also work with businesses across telecoms, cybersecurity and enterprise tech as well.
Great, thank you, Holly. Okay, so before I kick into the questions, I'm going to start off with a stat. 95%, according to Marketing Week's research with the Aaron Berg-Bass Institute, around 95% of B2B buyers are not in market to buy your products at any one time. So what does that mean for PR and marketing? What it tells us is it's really important to reach out to 95% of your customers who are not yet in market to ensure that your brand is front of mind when those customers do enter the market in some future period. It also reinforces something that a lot of us already know. Delivering short-term sales isn't the most important job for B2B marketeers. That's because only 5% of customers are ready to buy today. The most important job is influencing the 95% of future buyers. Those are the people that will generate future cash flows. Another stat I found via LinkedIn was that B2B marketers spend around 8% of their budgets on brand awareness objectives. Obviously, that means that 92% of B2B budgets are dedicated to short-term bottom of the funnel objectives like lead generation. So firstly, turning to John, I'm sure you're familiar with a lot of those stats. Why do you think so many non-marketeers seemingly believe that the primary role of marketing and PR is to quickly deliver sales?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, there are always reasons that these things happen. So a lot, for a long time in my life, I would think, this makes no sense. Why do people behave like this? But there are always reasons that people make these decisions. It often comes down to incentives. I mean, if you think about how B2B marketing works in particular, it's never run by marketing. Really, honestly, B2B marketing is actually run by finance or by sales in most organizations. That's because most firms are either product and engineering led, where the product is so good it sells itself, or they are sales led, where sales says, oh, I sold the product, marketing didn't sell the product. So the first thing you have to understand is just the power structure of the B2B marketing firms or B2B firms themselves, right? And marketing is not, in the role of making most of the financial decisions in the way that, a marketer would be if he or she worked at Diageo or Unilever, that kind of thing. And so that's one of the big things, is that really in many cases, it's more of a sales support function than anything else. And if it's a sales support function, then what is it going to do? It's going to try to drive immediate sales, because that's the way that they're likely incentivized. That's the pressure they get from the sales org where they may work. So the structure of the firm and the incentives in that structure, I think, are really quite important. There's also just the general ecosystem more broadly outside of the B2B firm. And that is one in marketing, especially, it's become increasingly digital over time. And in the digital world, it's about clicks. And clicks are real time, and clicks are visible, and clicks are measurable. And of course, then everyone expects that everything is going to happen immediately. And as we know, if you read any of the Ehrenberg Bass work or the How Brands Grow work or the broader marketing effectiveness literature, most of the really good things that firms benefit from do not happen immediately, and they do not happen based on a click. But of course, we have now educated a bunch of marketers that click is the most important thing. And so then they're telling other people in the org, sales or finance, that a click is the most important thing. So you have kind of the structure of the firm is about sales. You have the ability to track a click in real time, which has now become about sales. And then the fact that most marketers are not trained in marketing. I myself am not trained in marketing. I've had to learn marketing myself. But most marketers are not trained in marketing and don't really understand how marketing ought to work, that it ought to be more about promotion and reaching future buyers than purely persuasion and trying to capture kind of an immediate buyer, because they don't know that isn't what they should do. They don't have the ability to educate themselves or the broader market that that's not right. And so you have essentially everything saying, measure clicks, focus on the short term, try to drive sales right now. And so if even marketing is saying that, well, of course, sales is going to say that. Of course, finance is going to say that. Of course, product is going to say that. If everybody's saying the same thing, then you get what you get.
Indeed. And Chrissy, are those stats and some of John's thoughts, do those resonate with you?
Absolutely. I think the budget piece especially resonates with me. And to be honest, I understand why those numbers are the way that they are, because when you're looking to allocate budget towards something, there's always going to be that question that you're getting from leadership of, what is this going to get me? And if you're in, say, demand generation, a lot of the times they can say things like, oh, well, this will guarantee us 300 leads. Okay, great. You're good to go ahead and spend that money. This will knowingly impact our sales cycle. And we have this quantitative, proof or metric to really back that. But for PR, it's harder to connect, say, a media placement to the sales cycle, because it's more top of funnel brand awareness. But as we've been saying, when 95% of potential customers aren't in the market to buy something quite yet, think about how important that brand awareness really is, because when they are ready to buy, whenever that might be, they might think back, oh, I read about that one company in the Financial Times. I should go check them out. So I absolutely understand why the stats are the way they are, but I think we need to kind of educate leadership in the larger industry on the importance of PR and how it ultimately has more of a long tail effect.
And from an in-house perspective, Chrissy, how do you go about educating your colleagues, senior decision makers, when it comes to how the budget should be allocated?
Definitely. I think it's a question that I've gotten throughout my career, is what exactly is the impact of PR. And I think a really great way to do that is through some PR measurement and just understanding, the market landscape, competitive landscape of where your competitors are showing up, where you think that, your company should be showing up, that could help drive a sales cycle. So, a lot of times we know that our sales team is selling to customers by showing some of these proof points and credibility in the market. I always like to say, any company can say anything about themselves. You see companies all the time say, we are the leader in XYZ. But when you have, the editor of the New York Times saying that about a company, that's actually very legit. And, you trust that person. It's a third party that is credible. So I think really showing the impact of that and where that can lead to is super important. And leadership, ultimately will understand that.
Yeah, well, certainly measurement is something that we play a great deal of focus on here at Babel. We are constantly thinking about how we can demonstrate return on investment of our work, and I'm sure you've seen that through our regular reporting with you, Chrissy. But when it comes to tactics, what do you see, Chrissy, as being the most effective tactics for helping you as a company to raise brand awareness?
Yes, I think a really big one here is seeking out more proactive news or brand awareness opportunities outside of, like hard news or launches. Since at Do It, we don't have as many of those regularly cadenced announcements, and something that the Babel team does super well is just bringing those earned opportunities to the table when we might not have a lot of news. I think it's important to really showcase value on top of the product or the solution that a company offers, especially at a company like Do It, where a lot of the services that we offer are more oriented around expertise. So to be able to showcase, expertise through whether it be a byline opportunity or a speaking opportunity where we can have, one of our technical spokespeople really speak to an important topic that's showing up a lot in the news. That's something that's really great and helps raise brand awareness without necessarily plugging Do It over and over again as something that companies should buy. It's more showcasing thought leadership in the space. So that's kind of one thing that I think is really great in terms of raising brand awareness.
And John, through your research, do you have any insight into the most effective tactics to help B2B brands raise awareness?
We don't really talk about brand awareness anymore. I actually believe brand awareness is incredibly important and it still ought to be measured. But so if you don't do it at all, you should start with brand awareness. That's a great place to start. But I've spent a lot of time working with really big brands that have enormous brand awareness. And so it's no longer really all that useful to track brand awareness. You need to then track mental availability, which is more about situational awareness. Do I come to mind for being reliable, for being scalable, for being efficient? I mean, all the things that Chrissy's company does, around helping you to optimize your cloud workflows or your cloud products. I mean, that's the kind of stuff, right? Reliability, scalability, efficiency, collaboration, all this different stuff. So I would think of kind of the different dimensions of a brand and where it creates value for its customers. And so the dimensional nature, which you can disaggregate as I just described, then that is really more the idea of mental availability. That's the primary job any marketer ought to do, is be building mental availability, linking your brand to customer needs. So that's really actually about, in my mind, a category entry point analysis. It's number one, starting with the customer and working backward from what the customer needs. What does the customer need? Every marketer, every salesperson, every finance person, every product person should understand what are the 5 or 6 things that our customers really need from us. Brand awareness is about the brand. It's about me. It's not about me. It's about my customer. So what does the customer need? Understand that. And then you ought to be able to use that framework to say, this is the most important thing, this is the second most important thing, this is the third most important thing. And that's how you ought to design your marketing strategy, your PR strategy, your comm strategy. We're going to spend 40% of our time on this message, and 30% of our time on this message, and 20% on this message, and 10% on this message, because that is when we talk to customers, that's what we hear is the most important thing. That's what we hear is the least most important thing. And so we're going to allocate our media or our comms or our PR in that way. That's really about CEPs and understanding why people buy the category. And then you ought to design that into your creative. And the creative framework I really like is ABLE. You need to have things that get attention, that are well branded, that have strong links to those customer needs. And then you need to do those consistently over time. So attention, branding, linkage, equity, that's what builds, from a creative perspective, mental availability. And then you've got to scale that as much as possible. And that is really about reach. I'm a reach maximalist, I like to say. And so what that means is go find in your category the biggest online and offline publications and either through advertising or PR, put your messages there and reach as many of those people as you possibly can, and do that evenly over the course of the year, and do it at some cheap cost per reach, which is the key metric I would measure from an efficiency perspective. And if you do all those things creatively around what the customer needs, you reach everybody, you're going to build mental availability. You need to have a tracker that does that. That's more of a survey that you do probably once a year. Again, not about clicks, it's about memories. So I have a survey that does that. But that collectively is how I would think about the job as mental availability, understand the customer, design creative around that, reach everybody, and measure it over the course of the year to show longitudinal uplift.
I love that phrase, mental availability. I'm definitely going to use that moving forward, John. Holly, turning to you from the Babel perspective as an agency, can you give a bit of insight into how we help brands like Do It raise mental availability? So maybe some of the tactics that we typically use in these campaigns.
Yeah, of course. So, I mean, I think following on from both of those points, the key is that media relations is really vital, and that's something that we really pride ourselves on at Babel. We normally find ourselves speaking to the media every day in our work. So I think the way we engage with the media differs based on kind of the client, the story, the news cycle, but one of the most effective tactics we use is what we call issues jumping. So this is where we help our clients respond to breaking news relevant to their expertise by offering commentary or a briefing from their spokespeople to journalists that are already reporting on the news. So the main thing here is to be first and to be fast. Obviously, as the news cycle moves so quickly, it's vital we can help our clients get their perspectives out as soon as we can, which is usually bright and early in the morning. And another key tactic is really securing media briefings and contributed thought leadership articles. So there's really huge value in building relationships between the media and between our client spokespeople, so they can establish a kind of rapport, and so journalists know where our expertise lies for future stories as well. And I think with contributed articles, which we often draft on behalf of our clients, they really help to establish our clients as a real leader in their space and also help to grow the profile of our spokespeople.
Thanks, Holly. Another connected but slightly different topic is the concept of brand assets. John, I know you've done a lot of work in this area. Logos, colouring, slogans. We all know the big B2C and B2B brands that we can tell from the colour that they use, for example. Can you give a bit of insight into the importance of brand assets when it comes to mental availability?
Yeah, they're insanely important. That's the technical term. They are intangible assets. I mean, I think one of the things that we need to just think about is marketing needs to do better at marketing to the CFO. It's something we're extremely passionate about. Something like your brand, right? Like your brand name, your brand logo, your brand colors, your brand character, all that stuff. It honestly seems more like art than it does science or finance. But the reality is, Jenny Romaniuk has invented this wonderful distinctive asset matrix. There's a group called Distinctive Bat that helps to measure this. Brand is actually an incredibly financial topic. Brand is maybe the best financial tool ever invented. And brand can be measured in very quantitative terms that your CFO will appreciate. Almost every firm that is listed on the stock exchange, whether it be in London or in New York, most of its value is based on intangible assets. Brand is one of the core intangible assets, and it's probably the only one that marketers really actually control. So you should have a narrative around brand as an intangible asset, how we're measuring it every year, and you should be going in and showing your CFO that this intangible asset that you're growing that ultimately sits on the balance sheet, that is the real job that you're doing. You're helping to use marketing to drive financial outcomes. So brand, to me, we talk about it in more like artistic terms than we ought to. We ought to talk about it in very financial terms. I would really get to know the distinctive asset matrix from Jenny Romaniuk very closely, understand how to categorize all of the different assets, how to measure them over time, ultimately how to link that to the stock price and shareholder value. And that to me is the really big opportunity. I mean, it's obviously at a more tactical level, incredibly important to creative. If you put creative out that's poorly branded, and we did some research showing that almost every piece of B2B creative that goes out is poorly branded. I'm often fond of saying overkill is underrated. But if you put out creative very tactically that doesn't have branding on it, people will not remember it came from you. And if you're not the biggest player in the space, it's effectively the equivalent of advertising for your biggest competitor. So it's another reason that if you don't understand how advertising works, a lot of people think if I show the brand, people won't like the ad. Well, if the brand isn't remembered, there's no point in running the ad in the first place. And so the point is ultimately that branding is essential. The creative situation or messaging can change. The branding can never change. It always needs to be incredibly prominent, integrated into the story, into the creative itself, which is a whole different topic. But strategically, it's about finance. Tactically, it's about the creative just being memorable. They're linked, of course, but branding is woeful at best in B2B. We talk about the sea of sameness. Every brand is blue. I mean, nobody actually, there aren't even brands. I mean, they're blands, as the joke is often made, right? The biggest problem is people have brand unawareness, not that they have brand awareness. So there's a whole bunch of different pithy things I could say. And in fact, some of them I just did say, but that's my overall take on huge opportunity financially and strategically and tactically. And nobody's really doing as well, or often they're not doing as well as they should.
Thanks, John. And Chrissy, any B2B brands that you particularly admire, and what's the do-it approach to making sure that your brand stands out from the crowd?
Yeah, I completely agree with what John said, in terms of, if you're doing a bad job, you're basically advertising for your competitor. I think, in our space, especially in the cloud space, as John also said, every brand is blue. A lot of the names start to sound the same. They have, cloud in them. So I think with Do It, we really try and stand out from the crowd with, just a lot of our simplified language. So we try to come off as more approachable. Cloud is obviously a very complex topic, but we simplify that. So a lot of the language on our website is more about simplifying, making cloud accessible. We also have a little bit of fun with our colors, but one of the standout colors of our brand is spark pink. So, we're getting away from that blue, doing something a little bit different. But in terms of brands, B2B brands in particular that I admire, I think, HubSpot has always done an amazing job with their brand. I love their social media. I feel like I engage with all of their posts on LinkedIn. It's just kind of different from, other B2B brands. It's more fun. I also really love Gong's branding. I think they do a great job on social media as well, and just generally standing out from the crowd.
Thanks, Chrissy. I'm going to finish off with a final question for each of you. What would be your top tip for how B2B marketers can enhance, and I'll use the phrase, mental availability in 2024? Holly first.
Sure. So I think that everyone is obviously aware of the kind of growing influence of AI in the past year or so. But I think, like I said before, I think our clients really see value in PR and Babel, especially as a media relations expert. And those personal relationships are something that AI can never replicate. So I suppose that's what we'll continue to invest in this year to help our clients achieve that third-party endorsement with the media.
And Chrissy?
Yeah, two things come to mind here. I would say investing in measurement and data and analytics. I feel like this is always an ongoing story with PR, and there's always new technology coming out to help measure PR. But I think ultimately that will always be what's most impactful to leadership. That's how you get more budget year over year. So that comes to mind. Also, just investing in more research and kind of gaining market data. Holly knows this from working with media so often. They love kind of getting new stats about the industry. It's one way to kind of hook reporters if you don't necessarily have a ton of hard news. So those are two things that come to mind.
And finally, John.
I'm going to give you the advice that Mark Ritson always gives. It's also the same advice that Jeff Bezos always gives. It's rare that Mark Ritson and Jeff Bezos are saying the same thing. But what they would both wish for you is market orientation. So Ritson talks about, understanding the customer. You are not the customer. Understand the customer, understand what they need, build products, build pricing, build placement strategies, build promotion around what the customer needs. Bezos says the exact same thing, work backwards from the customer. Very few marketers are really good at that. They care more about what they want, what's going to make them famous, what's going to get them promoted. That's not about the customer. Focus on the customer. Market orientation is number one. And then number two, I think AI is actually underhyped, believe it or not. I don't think many people are saying that because it's got extraordinary hype. I think AI is underhyped. To me, it's a superpower. It's a superpower that helps you better understand your customer first and foremost, and then make lots of very important strategic marketing decisions around segmentation, targeting, and positioning. I think, within the next year or two, every single marketing company is going to have essentially somebody who sits on the team that's not a real person, that they're actually a synthetic person that helps you make marketing decisions. You could use the Copilot language that Microsoft uses. You could use a synthetic CMO as a concept, but I don't think there's any question that if you are not using AI to figure out how to do your job better, you are making a mistake. I would spend a lot of time figuring that out. I would have your teams figure that out. That to me, that's also why I quit LinkedIn. That's what I'm going to go. That's what we are doing right now. And so it's crazy to say, but I think AI is a bigger deal than people even realize. It's probably underhyped. Figure out how to use that to practice the 4 Ps, not just in general, to practice the 4 Ps, to be a better full stack marketer. I think that's a really enormous opportunity.
Thanks, John. I completely agree about the underhype around AI. If you look at the stuff that's coming out of OpenAI and their text to video developments, it's scary. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the next year to see what AI brings, but also quite daunted by the prospect. So that brings us to the end of the questions today. I'm just going to finish off by telling viewers, if you want to learn more about how Babel helps brands like Do It raise mental availability, you can head to our website, www.babelpr.com, and you can find out about our services, and there's a few case studies in there. So finally, thanks very much to Chrissy, John and Holly for joining me today. And I wish everyone the best for the rest of 2024.